For the coach.
Ryan, what's the overall kind of emotions of a day like today? You're meeting with players, and maybe the disappointment settled in a little bit. But what today represents for you and your coaching staff?
It's more so about starting the conversations about what went on, and two, expectations for moving forward with guys. So all that stuff starts today for what we want to see out of them over the course of the summer, and make sure that they all know, like, you don't want to be in this position that we're sitting here today. We set a goal every year of being a playoff team, and we didn't get that this year, so that's the ultimate gauge of a successful season, and everybody has to find a way to do more and improve over the course of the summer, so we're in a better position next year, and that starts today with the conversations we have with the players.
Do you get lots of the conversation? Obviously, the messaging from you to the player, but do you get lots of that honest feedback from the player too about what they felt and personally and as a team?
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like they're more open nowadays than they have in the past. Even when I first started coaching, the young guys were very quiet, but now everybody's a part of trying to make a team work. I think the older guys on your team very much feel like they're a part of helping it move forward, so they have ideas and suggestions along the way. And it's our job as a coaching staff to make sure that we listen to them, because they're the ones that have to go on the ice and kind of apply the plan. So you work together, and I do feel like nowadays the players are much more open to voicing concerns and giving you the opinion on the way things were and areas that we can be better as a team.
Obviously, you want to make the playoffs. Obviously, you're not in that position. But that aside, how would you assess how you felt you did in your first full year coaching this team?
Still a tough question because it's fairly early. The one thing that I was proud of, I think this year we were a couple things. We brought some youth into the mix, and we were able to incorporate them in the lineup. That was something that was important for us. The second thing for me would be that I was pleased with was the leadership group that developed and started to get stronger as the season went on. And that's something that we need to continue to work on and develop here, because those are the guys that are going to help push us forward. And then the other thing, we had a lot that went on over the course of the year, and I feel like with the leadership group and the guys willing to persevere and fight through some of the adversity, we were competitive just about every night. The guys worked, and that's what I ask for them, out of them, is to make sure that whatever situation is, you come and work. And there was a few nights where we weren't at the level we wanted to be at, but I felt like those were few and far.
You mentioned the leadership group. Obviously, from the outside, this seems like it'd be a uniquely challenging year to be a coach or even a player on this team with all the contractual stuff going on. Was there anything in particular you felt your leaders did well to sort of help navigate the group through it?
I think they found a way to keep what mattered inside our dressing room. So they learned early on that all the talk outside the room was a safe haven, if you will, for the players. And I think once they kind of got to understand that, they didn't allow any of that outside noise to come inside. So it was more about them than anything else. And whenever something came about, whether it was a trade or a situation that we had to deal with, they dealt with it, they put it to bed, and they moved on. And I think that showed a lot of maturity from some of our key players like Michael and Blake and Mackenzie and others like Naz, Markey. All those guys were a big part of that this year and helping, I think, push it down a little bit and just stay focused on what we were trying to do as a team.
Is it hard when you look at the group to evaluate this season as a whole, because it did, the group that you had changed so much?
I don't think so. I mean, when you look at the individuals, there was a lot of guys that had really good years for us. There were some other guys that we still have to prop up a little bit. I think when you evaluate as a coach, there's areas that we know that we have to get better in. We like some of the changes that we made system-wise, and we think that we're going to continue to get better in those. The more we work on it and tweak and make some small adjustments to them as we move forward. But there's things like the consistency in our game. It's making sure that we are having the same mentality against whatever opponent we're facing. It's making sure that our last game of a back-to-back is the most important game type mindset. There's all sorts of things that we can improve on, and that's up to us first and foremost as a staff to figure that plan out, and then go through the leadership group and then eventually the team to make sure we improve on those areas for next year.
A year ago at this time, there was so much talk about Jonathan Huberdeau, and when we spoke to him, he said post-December, he was happy with the steps he took in his game, and he particularly
this year.
This year,
okay.
Yeah. I'm just saying that last year,
yeah.
Obviously, it was all Huberdeau. But how do you evaluate a year like his? Because he talked about the defensive side, but acknowledged that's not really what he's paid $7.5 million a year for.
Yeah, but if it's hard for a player like Jonathan, I think, to really look back at his last 2 years, if you will, and think of it as success, because he's always thought of himself as someone that has to generate all the time. If he doesn't generate, he has a hard time with it. But if he really takes a step back over the last 2 years, he's become a better player overall. And I think what we saw from Christmas on after he had that stretch was a guy that was committed to more so both sides of the game, and now he was starting to generate for us a little bit. So it's finding that balance for him where he can be a guy that contributes all the time, but recognize that he brings a lot of other things to the table for our team as well. So he's a player that's no different from a younger player where over the course of the summer, you want to dig in like you have to earn it every day. So the summer for him is just as important as it is for one of our younger players that we're expecting to take a bigger role next year. So that's what we're excited about. The only silver lining for not playing meaningful games at this time of year is the players have more time to get over the bumps and bruises, and they can really get after their training to make sure we're not in this position again next year.
Ryan, there's been a lot of people wondering on the outside, okay, how's Jacob Markstrom feeling and what is his future, all that stuff. And I don't want you to tell us how Jacob's feeling or put words in his mouth, but can you just give us some insight on what you've seen behind the scenes from Jacob going back to the trade deadline and everything that transpired?
I'll even go back further from the beginning of the year. He's been very steady and even keel right through. And I know there's some stretches where you'll see the emotion come out in him and some comments around the trade deadline. But for us around the dressing room, he was very businesslike, and he was very much a leader in our room, and he approached everything the same way every day. And right from the beginning of the year, as I mentioned, you have players that give opinions and thoughts. He speaks up in meetings. He was very committed to doing whatever he could do to help this team win. So we see a different Jacob a lot of times than what you guys would see in the media and the way he is away from the rink. He's a competitor through and through, and he's a very proud man, and we're lucky to have him.
Sticking with goaltending, Dustin Wolf obviously wound up playing 17 games this season. Can you envision going into training camp with Dustin Wolf potentially as the third option again?
Yeah, because we have all those guys under contract. So we are fortunate that that's a position of strength for us. And I think by us getting Dustin in those games, you don't want to see a guy get hurt or injured, but when someone misses time, it opens the door. And this gave him an opportunity to play a fair bit of hockey. for us, and I think we saw him get more and more comfortable as the year went on. So, as I mentioned, the injuries you don't like to see, but it opens the door for opportunity, and I think he took advantage of that.
How did you, like, the power play wasn't working great for most of this season? How would you evaluate that?
I would agree with what you said for I guess the last 12 to 15 games, maybe it got hot. And prior to that, it was not very good, and it was one of the reasons why we're sitting here today. We weren't able to find the consistency that we needed in it, and until recently, with a couple adjustments, they didn't have the confidence knowing that we can be a difference in a hockey game. So they hopped over the boards almost with it gave a coach the feeling of they're going out there for 2 minutes, and we'll see what happens. We got to get back at it 5-on-5, where the difference towards the end of the year, they went over knowing they were going to score. And that mentality is something that we really have to push and have them focus on when we come back next year, because it looked like a totally different power play of the last 14, 15 games of the year than what we saw for the majority of the rest of the season.
One of your players earlier credited Andrei Kuzmenko with having a big part to do with that. Is that fair?
Fair. He is, when Andre got his game going, the power play took off, so I don't think it's a coincidence. He's very good down low along the goal line, so he's not only a threat to take the puck to the net and score with his skill, but he's also got the composure with the puck where he can make plays to open guys. So I think he changed the power play pretty significantly. And then the other thing for me was Sharon Govich changing the sides and putting him on his forehand side. I think was a real big change for that first power play unit as well.
And your penalty kill sort of cooled off a little bit after the trade deadline. Do you think it was a structural thing, or just the personnel changes you made, sort of some of the guys you leaned on hard early in the season just weren't there anymore?
Yeah, I think a lot of that was personnel. You take your normal 2 penalty killers out of the picture, and now you're working with other guys, and they're having to do some heavy lifting that other players were doing. So I think it came down more so to that than anything structurally.
How best would you describe the culture change? How best would you describe the culture change from the team you inherited to the team you have now?
I don't really know how to answer that. I like the direction that it's going, for sure, and I feel like the players, the person beside them is now becoming more important. I don't know if we're there yet. I feel like we're going in the right direction, Eric, with that. Because at the end of the day, that's what you have to fall back on. You fall back on your work, and you fall back on your standards and the culture that you have in your dressing room. So the stronger that is, the tighter the ties that they have as a team to each other, the better your team's going to be. And then eventually it leads to holding each other accountable, so the coach almost gets out of the picture. And when you look at all the best teams around the league, that's what they have. The coach is there to kind of put them back on track when they slip a little bit, but it's the players that hold themselves to a certain standard. So you want to get to that point where it's an everyday thing, and that's why I'm proud of our leadership group. I think they've done a really good job of trying to, bring it together sooner than later, and I think that they really are going in the right direction.
Ryan, you've been a head coach at the WHL, AHL, and NHL levels, and when I asked Rasmus Andersson, he said, you're a different coach with the Flames than you were with the Heat. But when you look at your journey, how have you grown as a coach over the years, and what adjustments have you had to make coaching at the highest level, other than maybe dealing with us every day?
A lot. I think when you're a young coach, you always feel like you're ready to step into a job, and everybody thinks that, I'm ready for this and I'm going to kill this role and responsibility. And you step into it and you're like, whew, boy, I've got a lot to learn. But I feel like I was given a bit of a head start for this because of the people that I got to work with here. So when I was assistant coach here, the guys that I had a chance to learn and watch under were really good at different areas of the game. So for me, I'm a note taker, and I make a lot of notes, and I try to tweak things a little bit. But without the help from the 3 prior head coaches that I was here under, it makes it much more difficult. But those guys allowed me to be more ready than I probably was at any other stage of my career coaching.
The other thing that Rasmus said is that when you were coaching the Heat, you played the Flame system, which you had to, but here you played your system. Are you happy with the system that you've put in place, and should we expect to see the same sort of hockey next season?
Yeah, I am. I think we're going to get better in our own zone. That, looking back at it, we had a terrible start to the year. We were 2-7-1 to start, and I think I underestimated the size of the change maybe we asked them to make early on. But once they grasped it and figured it out, I thought we got much better in our own zone. So I don't feel like when you look at our goals against or our chances against, a lot of those came from our play in our own zone. A lot of it was what we did with the puck in the other ends of the ice to create odd man opportunities for our opponent. So I like that side of it, and I think we're going to get better with it the harder we are and the quicker that we kill plays in our own zone. I also like our neutral zone now, and I think we're as the season went on, we got more and more comfortable playing the way we expect the team to play. So for me, that's where growth comes in. There's not going to be a lot of changes on that side of things. There's slight tweaks, but the players understand what we're looking for and where they should be. So that thought process or thinking about, am I supposed to be here or there, should not be there next year. So for me, I look forward to seeing us get off to a much better start than what we did this year.
And we've asked a few of the veterans like Coleman, Kadri, Uyghur, and even Markstrom, like, do you want to stay here when development might be the priority over competing for a Stanley Cup? How important will it be for you guys heading forward to have those good veterans in the room to facilitate the development of the Zeris and Cornaus?
Yeah, well, you have to have great leaders around your team all the time because they are the ones that set the standard for how the team has to play, and young guys as well. But for us, the expectation next year is to make playoffs. So you can talk about development all you want. Part of our job to put ourselves in a position to be there is to see some growth from not just our older players, or the younger players, I should say. It's the older players as well. That's how we get ourselves to the next level. So people have had an opportunity to play games here over the last 10, 15. They have a better understanding, I think, of what they have to do over the summer to make sure they're ready to contribute on a different level next year or to raise their level, because expectations will be the same for our team. And you talk about development, yeah, we'll keep infusing people in. There'll be different people in the lineup, but expectations not going to change for what we want out of this team next year.
And you feel like this is a top-down expectation, that it is a playoff expectation for next season?
You always have to have it. And I don't feel like if you take our start out of the equation this year, we were playing some good hockey at the trade deadline. And I do feel like if we would have stayed status quo, then we're probably in a different position right now. That's my thought on it. And then once we got over the hump of losing some of those players, it was starting to come again. So I do think that we're in a position where we have a good group of older players that are going to continue to push, and they want to get better, and they want to be in the playoffs, and they're going to drag people along with them because that's what has to happen.
Ryan, what can a trip to Worlds maybe do for Martin Pospisil as he tries to further what he's accomplished in his first season as an NHL?
Another great experience. He was awesome this year. If you look at our team, there was one guy that I thought changed that 2-7-1 start, had an impact on flipping the script a little bit on our season. That was Marty. Every night he was a rat, if I can say that. But the pace that he plays the game at is what we want to see from more of our players. Like, he is what we want to look like in a lot of ways. And the part that you love about him, for you guys that watch us practice every day, he practices the same way. So our players on the ice in practice know that if I'm not ready, he's going to finish his hit on me. So he's just able to carry that over onto the game. But for a young guy like that to understand how he has to play all the time and that he can be a really good NHL player, not just an NHL player. This guy can be a really good NHL player. The World Championships gives him another opportunity to play against some really good hockey teams in meaningful games. So hopefully they're able to get into some meaningful games there. But he's a really good player. So he's one of the guys that you have to be really happy for his season and how he progressed this year.
I'm really curious, like, using him as an example, because there's so much satisfaction there. He didn't know if he'd ever play in the NHL, and I made it. And so how do you balance hey, you should be proud of this season with making sure that the message today is sort of pushing it forward?
For me, the one we tried to leave with him, Connor's the same. You guys had great years this year. There's a lot of positivity around the way you played. I tried to get them to understand that next year will be much, much harder. Because this year there was no expectation on them. Next year there will be. So that's a different animal for a player to learn how to handle that at a younger age, knowing that every night now, if I turn a puck over, I don't get the same leeway as I did as a first-year guy because they're trying to bring me along. People know when I'm on the ice now because people know my name, and they know I'm a good player, so you're going to get better defensemen playing against you. All that stuff comes into play, so they have to be able to handle that. So you get yourself into situations that when we play teams that are out of the playoffs, like we did last night, I thought Connor played really well, had a good game. He was a little quieter against Vancouver the night before. So that's what next year is going to be all about, is the expectation is there. So now it's finding a way to contribute in those situations, and Marty's no different. So expect it to be harder. So that means the preparation you put in this summer has to be at a different level to make sure you're confident and ready to go.
Do you think those two stories, Connor and Martin, the fact that they came in, they didn't start the season here, but turned themselves into everyday NHLers, that becomes a bit of an inspiration for other guys in the organization that, they're a story that you would hope to recreate at some point down the line?
100%. And I think that did for that Wranglers group. When they came up and saw they were not just going to come up and play a couple games then get sent back down, that they were actually going to play and be guys that were going to be used in different situations, I think it changed for a lot of guys that were with the Wranglers. And true to Connie's word, we brought a lot of people up this year and we gave them opportunities to play. Some guys, like those two, really took advantage of it. Other guys got their feet wet and they got a taste of what they have to do to be full-time guys down the road. So it is most definitely a situation where it leads people to believe that they have an opportunity with seeing those two guys as to what they did this year.
Looking back on when those guys came up, I know a lot of times in the past when guys come up from the Wranglers, they get fourth line, bottom six duties. They sort of the coaching staff sort of eases them in. What went into the thought process of sort of putting those two guys with Nazem in such a prominent place right away?
Well, Posp's first game was with Michael Backlund, if I'm not mistaken, in Seattle, I think was his first game, and that's where he played to start with. So we felt like we needed a little bit of pace, and we needed somebody that we thought could complement Naz a little bit on the wing that had some ability. So Connor's most definitely not a fourth line player. It's not the way he's built, it's not the way he plays. So if we don't put him in a position where he has a chance to succeed, how are we helping him? So part of our job is to help the guys out and put them in positions to succeed, and then it's up to them to take advantage of it, and that's what Connor was able to do.
Interesting you say that, just because A.J. Greer talked about how important he thought it was for Matthew Coronado to actually get some fourth line minutes. He's like, we know Coronado's not a fourth line guy, but him learning those things will be good for him long term. So it can go both ways a little bit.
Yeah, Matty to me is a little different than Connor. Like, they're a little bit different player. They're both guys that we'll look upon to help generate offense. But there's a little difference between the two of them where I think Matty has the ability to bounce up and down and all over the place. Maybe it's because of where he went to school. I don't know. He's a smart player. And I'm not saying that Connor's not, but there's a little difference between the way the two of them play the game. In certain situations, if you ask Matty to be hard on a forecheck, he can do that. Connor's more of he's got to possess the puck and use his body to make plays and create. So there's a slight difference between them. But what we liked about Matty this year was his time. He got better each time he was brought up, and he really focused on the details of the game to try to make him a better player away from the puck, and it was noticeable to us as a staff.
What are your impressions of Connor's area at center, and do you see him in that position into next season?
It depends on summer and how he comes back and what we return, I guess, is what you have to kind of look at it. In talking to him this morning, he likes playing both. So it's a nice option for us to have, and I think we've talked before that if you had 12 forwards that were all capable of playing center, that's a good problem to have. So it was good for us as a staff to see that he could handle it and he could do a job there. And now it's just a matter of fit to see if that's where we want to continue to use him or if it's back on the wing in a different role.
Will you treat watching playoff hockey like a little bit of a research assignment? Like, can a coach hone his craft? Obviously, you'd rather be on the bench, but by watching what happens in the next 2 months?
For sure. Like, we'll, as a staff, we're going to separate some of the games that are going to be played, and everybody's got their teams that they'll have to follow, because each team does something differently. Some are the same, but if you can pick and choose some of the things that separate a team, why are they in the playoffs or what makes them a good team, then that's what the game is about. You steal or borrow, whatever you want to call it, from other teams all the time, and this gives us an opportunity to do that.
What's the follow through then on the other side? Like, do will you get back together or have a call with the coaches after playoffs, or do you kind of go through it on the fly, or how do you split it up, but how do you take the information from there?
Yeah, and there's texts, phone calls, all that stuff, and then I think this year we'll have a get-together for sure sometime around development camp. So that also gives us a chance to see some of the young players. So we'll find time to get together over the course of the summer, and really most guys are here or close to here, so it should be a little easier than other years.
A little bit of a weird run, Ryan, but I think you were top 5 this season in percentage of goals scored by defensemen and bottom 5 in percentage of goals scored by forwards. Like, in an ideal world, do you want that to be a little more balanced? Do you feel like the forward group had a little bit more to give, or your defensemen carried the offense a little bit too much?
I think your offense is generated like us 5 guys, so who gets it? It doesn't matter. I mean, the forwards aren't going to have success if the defensemen aren't contributing, and the defensemen aren't going to have success if the forwards aren't contributing. So someone's doing something for the other all the time. So if you get it working as 5 guys together fluidly, then you're doing things the right way. So I think that one can't have success without the other, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Okay?
Thanks, Huska.
Thank you guys very much.
Thanks for everything.
Okay. Shh.
It's
An update on Conroy.
Pulling everything down here.
Everybody all
No, that's okay.
questions for Craig?
Craig, you've been through this as an assistant general manager, but what was it like going through exit meetings as a general manager for the first time?
Well, the difference is I'm doing most of the talking. I let the players talk, but, we go back and forth and questions and just kind of get a read. And pretty similar, as an assistant GM, I just kind of sat and listened most of the time. But, yeah, so, you wouldn't want to be doing it right now. And the guys don't want to be doing it right now. But, hey, this is where we're at right now.
I know you're disappointed the team didn't make the playoffs, but was there a different tone, a different mood this season compared to last season?
I think so. I really do. I think, obviously they're not where we want to be. They're not where I want to be, the organization, the city as a whole. But, it felt like there was a lot of optimism in the conversations. Hey, we got to take some steps. We got to move forward. But it wasn't I didn't feel any negativity or people upset or unhappy. And, you guys would probably be able to tell better when they did their interviews. I haven't seen any of them yet, but it was, last year I didn't like the tone of what was said with everyone leaving. It was just didn't feel right, but I did not get that upstairs from the guys.
What was the conversation with Jacob Markstrom like? Because we know after the trade deadline, he said he wasn't thrilled with the way his sort of name was out there in trade rumors. What was the conversation like?
Yeah, I mean, obviously that wasn't something anybody was happy with. I mean, I didn't like to hear about probably 15 of our guys' names out in trade deadline stuff. I mean, nobody wants to hear that. So, I mean, we just, Marky explained where he was at, and, I talked to him about where we were at, and, Pat Morris, and everybody kind of knows now. So, that's obviously we're going to keep that between ourselves. But, it was cordial. He was good. He was a great pro. I mean, that's the one thing. I know he wasn't happy, but the way he treated the staff, the coaches, you guys, I think, he was upset, I think, with the way things went down, and I get it. My name's been out in rumors too, and there's been things said, and it's a lot on you and your family. So, you know what? We had a good talk, and then, just like with everybody else.
Do you envision him a part of this team next season?
Time will tell with all that, with everything we're doing. I mean, the one thing we're trying to do is figure out how we move this thing forward to get to a point where we're not sitting here talking to you guys right now. You want it after. You don't want to know when the end date is. You want to know, okay, we lost in Game 6. We won the Stanley Cup. I mean, those are the things you're trying to achieve here. So you don't want to, it's hard to put today expectations of what's going to happen in a month or a day or a week or, moving forward.
With that though, Craig, including Dustin Wolf in the conversation, do you anticipate having 3 goalies come September?
I mean, I guess the day after the last game, it's tough to say. Right now, we have 3 goalies. And talking to Vladdy today, he's excited. His hip's feeling good. And we just have to, that's going to be a work in progress. And that's something I got to deal with moving forward here.
Craig, given the guys who didn't want to stay, who didn't want to resign, I think I asked you a similar question when you were introduced last year. Does this club have a job to do to show NHL players that this is a place to play, that this is a destination?
Well, I think, what I liked with the exit meetings today were guys were upset about not being where our goal was to make the playoffs. They were upset about that, but there wasn't this negativity or they were upset about coming to the rink every day. I mean, I even watched them the day before we went to our last game, on the road, and just the excitement they were having fun still. They were enjoying themselves. They were playing little games. They were cheering, and I'm thinking, we wouldn't have seen that last year. So I guess we're taking little steps at a time. And, in the end, they're the ones that are playing each night. I said, I can't score a goal. I can't block a shot. I can't make a save. It's those guys in the room. And it feels like they're coming together. Obviously, like I said, we have work to do. But I don't feel like last year it felt like there was a real negativity around it. And I don't think it's Calgary, the Calgary Flames. It's just the situation wasn't good last year. I don't know if the expectations, but the expectations are always high here, and I just felt like this year I didn't get the same vibe from the players leaving. Last year it was more of a negative thing for whatever reason.
Can you, this will mean more coming from you than any of us sort of guessing at it. Can you explain the importance of that tone being better, of that optimism being there?
Well, I think the tone, I mean, I like that they're disappointed. They're not happy with where they are. I think they want to. Everyone wants to make the playoffs. I mean, if you make it to the NHL, you're not just saying, I just want to play in the NHL. The goal is to do what these guys are going to start doing on Saturday, and that's to have a chance to win a cup. I mean, I don't think I ever went into one season where I thought, well, we're not going to win, no. I can do something about that every night. I can maybe score, or Jerome, we can do something to get us in, but no one's going to feel sorry for any team in the NHL. They have to come every night and win. If it's a 2-1 game or a 1-0 game, that's what it's all about. So I don't think the expectations for any team, San Jose Sharks, maybe they're last in the standings, they're going to come in with a different attitude next year. I mean, we're all going to do the same thing. We all start with 0 points, and you want to get to a point where you're like, okay, we're in the playoffs, and that's the goal.
There's this line of thinking, though, that goes that, the only way to build a contender long-term is to bottom out. You know what it is. Get some really high picks, get the young superstars and build around them. But I look at the teams below you in the standings, and there's a lot of them that haven't been in the playoffs or haven't won playoff games in a really, really long time. So what is the model that you would like to follow?
Well, I mean, you're trying to look at a team like Dallas. They had good veteran core. They've added really good. They had a great draft. They really did. The one draft, with Haskinen and Ottinger and it's one of those drafts. So you have to have some drafts. They brought in some free agents. Even this year, you look at the guys they brought in. They made some trades. I mean, so it's not just to go to the very bottom. Like everybody says, okay, go right to the bottom. Because the one thing, in my opinion, if you go with a completely young team how do they get to learn to win, in those close games? Hey, you might lose games. My philosophy is a guy like Zari, Pospisil, Coronado, Wolf, they need to take a step next year. They were in the NHL this year. They know what it is. Now they need to take a step, because I don't know, with the veteran guys, we had guys with career years. We hope they have the same career year next year, but with these other guys taking a step, and who is coming underneath, are there trades? Are there, who are you going to get in the draft? There's a little bit of unknown there, so you don't really know names yet. But, you want to constantly be pushing. You want to sprinkle in these young guys, see how they do, and see which ones rise. And then next year we expect more out of each of them coming in. And hopefully they expect more out of themselves.
We talked to a lot of these guys, and even Huska said playoffs is the goal next season. So you've got those veterans that you probably want to convince to stick out through this rebuild, but you've also got draft assets now. Like, are you going to be making moves with the idea of bringing in immediate help to get this team into playoff contention next season?
Well, I think you're always looking, even when we were making the trades this year, you'd love to grab guys from 22 to 18 that are drafted, maybe a couple young guys, 23 or in that age group. Those players are hard to kind of pry out of teams. That's what you're trying to do. But, if there's a deal, I think of deals in the past. Montreal has done it. A few teams have done it. They went and traded for younger players. Is there an opportunity to do that? Maybe not like an 18-year-old, but, is there a 20, 21-year-old? So you're always looking to see if you can add that. Not easy, because not a lot of teams want to give them up. But with the cap, if a team's really going for it, if someone wants to add a veteran in free agency, maybe there's an opportunity. So, I think as we move forward, we're looking at anything. If we make the draft pick, if we use a draft pick, or if there's some way to improve our team with a younger player in that kind of age bracket, would be ideal for us.
Craig, is there any sort of nervousness as a general manager on a day like today? And I ask that in the sense of, there's been this speculation that there might be a line out your door of guys who wanted to tell you that they didn't want to be part of a rebuild. And that's not what we heard here. But were you wondering what you would get in these meetings today?
A little bit uncertainty going in. You don't know what guys are thinking. Like, when you talk to guys at the rink, or, and now this is their forum where they can kind of tell you what they're thinking, and you want to know what they're thinking. You don't want to be surprised in a month from now. But I do think, they enjoy the city. They enjoy playing here. They want to win here. They'd like to win as quick as possible, And with what kind of we had to do this year, we lost some very good players. We brought in some other younger guys. We're trying to give some younger players a look. I think everybody wants it to be, if we could have just snapped our fingers and been in the playoffs this year, that was the goal. I mean, it's always the goal, like I said before, to make the playoffs. But, we want to continue to keep building on something. And I think being able to get all these young guys in, with Pospisil, Zari, Coronado, and Wolf, was just a few of them. But you saw all the other guys come up. We need to continue to grow with those guys. And with our veteran guys had some great years. A lot of them had career years. So, we got to continue to do that moving forward. And hey, it's not going to be easy. The West it's tough in the West. I mean, every team you look at, they're good. I mean, I can't wait to watch the playoffs. And that's part of it. How do we build a team that's going to get us to compete with these teams in the West? It's going to take a little bit of time, but you never know when something's going to fall in your lap as far as a trade or a player, and you need other guys step up. So all the young guys, even the ones that didn't make it up this year, the Hansigs of the world, we need to have great summers and come to compete for a spot next year.
How does it feel being in that situation where you have guys on this team, especially veterans, who they want to win on this team, but you just said it now, it's going to take time to build that contending team, and you've acknowledged that it is a retool. What's it like juggling those two positions?
Well, I mean, like I said, they actually have the choice. I mean, they're the ones making the plays and winning and losing, So, I can't do that for them. They have to do that for themselves. And I think the one thing I say, I never really felt the effort wasn't there this year. Yeah, you're going to have games you win, lose. We had some stretches where we didn't like. The start of the year really set us back. I mean, if we don't get off to that start, who knows? It probably doesn't change that we have to move the other guys when we did, because we couldn't get them. We just couldn't come to terms with them, what contract worked for them and what contract worked for us. So that's why we had to move past them. I think that's part of having a salary cap, though. You have to juggle how much each player's worth and their value and term, and those are the hard decisions. And if the player feels like they're worth one thing and we believe another, that's we just couldn't come to terms with a few of them, and then we had to make the moves. So with that said, we have guys under contract, we have guys locked in. We're not in a position where we have to move anybody out. Like we can just move forward, and we're trying to get better.
How active do you expect to be at free agency, or is there merit in saving cap space?
Cap space is a weapon for sure. You want to have cap space because there's going to be teams that are going to have, even though it's going to go up, a lot of teams have spent money, but there might be players out there that need to be on the move only to create cap space for maybe someone else in free agency. Do I think 7-year deals right now are the way to go? Probably not. But we do have space. We do have money. And we're going to have to see kind of what the landscape kind of unfolds, as the trade deadlines approaches. Because we do have a few holes we need to add, but how do we add that? What type of piece? Again, term and contract are going to make a difference in what we're trying to do here, because the one thing like I said with the young guys, you want to bring in some veteran guys we have veteran guys here to help get them better. You don't want the team losing every night by 10 goals. That doesn't do anything good. Did they ever really get better? I don't know. And then you see some teams that have been trying to get out of that trend for 7, 8, 9 years. We're trying to see if our goal is to turn it over as quickly as possible and move forward.
So what's the difference between rebuild and retool then, as far as the Calgary Flames are concerned?
I think when you look at a rebuild, you tear it right to the ground. You get rid of every player you have. You don't have veteran players. You're not looking to spend money. You're not looking to win. You want to lose. You want to try to get that high pick, the first overall pick. And in reality, some teams can do it. Some teams want to do it. That's the way to do it. I think in a Canadian market, with the players we have under contract with our core group, that doesn't make any sense for us. For us, we're saying, okay, look at that Dallas model. Look how they did it. I guess that's a retool. They made draft picks. They brought in players. They added a few veterans here and there. I think you look at that team, and I think they're right in the kind of win now mode, and they did it over a short period of time. And they had a great draft, and it might take a little bit of time. But we have some very good players in this team and young guys that have taken steps, and we need to continue to take another step.
Jonathan Huberdeau obviously showed serious improvement as the season went by, particularly after December. But it's hard to ignore he finished with 52 points and a -29. What does a successful year look like next year for Jonathan Huberdeau?
I think this probably, like you said, probably after Christmas on, would be what we expect. The one thing, Jonathan's always working hard. He comes to practice, he works, he goes to the game. I think he almost wants it so bad, when he puts so much pressure on himself. It'd be nice for us to be able to take the pressure off him, but when you're the highest paid player on the team, that always doesn't happen. But we just want him to come and play the way he did down the stretch. He competes, he back checks, he's working hard, he's trying to do exactly what the structure is, what the game plan is, and I think if he does that, he comes into camp again another year. I'd like to find chemistry. I'd like to get him a player with chemistry. Seems like he has a little bit of chemistry with guys, but that's something I have to try to figure out this summer.
When it comes to Jacob Pelletier, obviously that injury was just so hard to evaluate a guy's year after an injury. So what do you take from just what was obviously an incredibly challenging season for him?
You feel bad for Jacob. I mean, he came into great shape, missed a lot of time, came back. The Trouba hit set him back again, and I think we just thought, would we have loved to seen him down the stretch? Yes, absolutely. But with that said, we want him to get in and play as much as he can, have a good playoff run and just have a great summer and come back. I mean, the one thing Jacob brings is you notice his speed, even in the games in Boston and when we just came back, it was noticeable. The speed was there. I'm like, ooh, he looks – and then the injury against the Rangers, just it's a disappointing season for him. I can't imagine what he's going through right now, but for him to go down and have fun – have a successful, play a ton, and just regroup. I mean, he's part of our plans moving forward. So, you don't want him to overthink it. It's just about playing in a season that, the injuries were just unfortunate.
When you have a guy like Pospisil who went from, and maybe this is just the external view, but went from a little further down your list of prospects to suddenly playing as a full-timer in the NHL, does it change the way you look at your own guys? Does it change the way you kind of look at what you have in the system?
Oh, I think we always believed in Pospisil. I mean, that was the one thing. The size, you see what he can do. The injuries were he could not catch a break for 2 or 3 years. He just kept getting injured. So to have him be able to come back this year, and you can see why. He plays only one way. He plays all out, every shift, all game, right down to the last minute, and that's what we love about him. And I believe he still has another level of skill. You'll see as he goes. I think it's only going to get more and more comfortable, and he's got a great shot, great hands, and he's going to be a big part of this team for a long, long time. So, yeah, but you have to give these guys chances. I mean, and that's what we talked about last year was, maybe not going out and signing a bunch of free. Well, we didn't have money, but the other thing was we wanted to give young guys an opportunity. And now you look back, it was, it's exciting for us. Even though he got sent down at the beginning, you think, okay, we got a really good player here, and same thing for Zari. Coming in and playing as well as he did from kind of November on.
Right, between having 24 picks and including 5 first-rounders in the next 3 years, 9 picks and 2 first-rounders this year, and the want and need to add players in their late teens and early 20s, how important are your amateur and professional scouting staffs going to be, and how excited are they about the role that they're probably going to play moving forward?
Well, I know the amateur guys love having all the, the 4 picks in the first 4 rounds. So, they were talking about that last week. They're excited. But again, we got to dial in. That's where we're at right now. We want to make sure everything we're doing, we want to dial in on the kids that we really like. And And that's what I said. If it's your first pick or your last pick in the 6th round this year, we want to make sure each pick's important. We want to put a jersey on a guy that we think is going to be a Calgary Flame. So, they're excited. They're dialed in, and, they're ready, though. And I said, if there's trade opportunities, like the pro guys need to be ready, the amateur guys need to be ready, and, because you never know when it's going to happen. Obviously, the trade deadline is a time, but, from here to the start of September, you got to make phone calls and keep talking to people and figure out if there's some fits. You kind of talk to teams about what your needs might be looking forward, and they'll say, and they'll give you some ideas what they're thinking about their teams. So it's a puzzle, but I think everybody in the organization is excited, especially on that side, pro and amateur.
It's very early to tell, obviously, but is there a type of player you're looking for, in particular with that first pick you're going to have in this summer's draft? I think at 9, it'll be interesting because I think teams are going to pick the way they want to pick before us, and then that'll, you kind of see how the first 3 or 4 picks go, and you'll have an idea. Oh, okay, I think it's going to be this player or that player at that point. And our list is not set in stone yet. I mean, we have another meeting coming up soon, and there'll be battles right till the end to try to move a guy, especially now that they know where we're picking. So, it's a fun process. It's exciting time of year, and everybody, the draft's one of my favorite parts of this job. So, everybody's looking forward to it, but we're really trying to dial in now to make sure we make the right pick.
Jay Greer has been quite vocal about wanting to stay here. I felt like prior to his injury, he was making an impact. Would you like to see him back if possible?
Yeah, I mean, we've talked to AJ and his representation just to, but again, we want to sit down, have our meetings, see where we're at. But he was great. I mean, he came in and gave us everything that we wanted. He gave us that physical presence. Unfortunately, with the injury, he came back, even he would say he wasn't feeling 100% like he was before. He didn't have the same explosiveness in skating, and so he's got to get healthy. But couldn't ask for more from what he did for us this year.
Just on the injury front, are there any other injuries or any other surgeries that guys might have to go through?
I think we're going to have some guys go and see the doc, but I don't know. When you get MRIs and the doctors we might know that in a week or two.
What can you say about Oliver Shillington's play down the stretch and his possible future with the club?
Well, first, just to have him back playing was special, And, Ollie said today, he wants to continue to play hockey, which is the thing we needed to hear. So, we'll be obviously talking to JP and seeing where this goes down in the next month or so. So, yeah, it's just, for me personally, just to see him back playing from where he was a couple years ago to where he is now, and just, I'm just so excited for him. So I'm happy, and he's excited.
And I guess when you took this job 11 months ago, you had a lot of plates to spin, a head coach, 7 pending UFAs, there's a bunch of stuff going on. I guess how much different is the job going to be for you this summer with sort of a lot of stuff has already been dealt with, and it seems like, at least from the outside, there's a lot fewer fires to put out, so to speak.
Yeah, I mean, it was definitely a whirlwind to start for sure. But I think you're keying in on the draft right now. I'm going to go to Finland here in a few days, so you're continuing to work through. But it is nice not to have all the staffing issues, the coach, assistant coaches. It'll free up more time to do other stuff that there's only so much time in a day. So it is nice to kind of have a few things behind us. And now, it's the planning moving forward. We have pro meetings, amateur scouting meetings. We got big tournaments coming up.
This is a weird question for you. Obviously, Jerome's son is a prominent draft prospect, but obviously he's someone that has a great insight into a lot of the young players in your draft class. So in this situation, like, how involved is Jerome in terms of the draft talks, and like will you let him know his son's spot on the list, those kind of things?
We don't talk about where Tej is on the list. Like, he doesn't read Tej's reports or anything like that. It just doesn't feel quite comfortable. But yeah, on everything else, tons of input. He's got great background. He knows a lot of these kids personally. So he's either coached against them when he was out east, or he knows them from things that his sons have played against the kids. So yeah, that information is invaluable. I mean, you're always looking to get an insight to what a player's like, what his family's like, and Jerome's a wealth of knowledge, especially this year.
Follow-up question, but you have no problem putting Tej on your draft list?
Yeah, we're going to just make the list the way, every player is just from 1 to, I don't know how many we have on there right now, maybe 72, but, that's kind of, we're just going to put everybody in the list it should be.
Craig, if there is a veteran, like Jake was a little non-committal, but if there is a veteran that isn't sure they want to see this through, they want to go win a cup in a more immediate way, like what's your selling point to them to stick this through here in Calgary?
You always want people to give you an opportunity and a chance to show them what you're going to do. It's easy. It's easy just to say, I want to go somewhere else. I want to, the hard part is to be a part of it, because it's going to be hard work. It's not going to be easy. It's not easy for any team. I mean, there's not one team that's probably out there thinking, well, that was the easiest regular season ever. Even the teams are at the top, they had their struggles along the way. And for us, we had some stretches where, we need to get consistency. We can't have those long we'd win long 4 or 5, lose 4 or 5, and we just have to kind of come together as a team and find ways to limit the losses as much as we can and win close games, and there's been some teams that, for whatever reason, lower than us in the standing, we have not had success against. So it's those are the frustrating ones, because you're like, you beat some very good teams, then maybe you lose the teams that you have to beat because other teams are beating them, and we weren't able to do it this year.
Ask about Nazem Kadri and the job that he did for you guys this year, because I don't know if it's because of the hits in Toronto in the playoffs or what, but I think that he had a bit of a reputation, and then we watched him. You guys trusted him with your 2 prized young prospects. Then you put him with Kuzmenko. We just saw this guy sort of take on whatever was thrown at him, and it seemed like he was a real leader for the team. Can you just talk or just tell me a little bit about what you saw from him?
Amazing year from Naz. I mean, the one thing is, whoever we put with him played better. And I know there's a lot of work when you play with young guys. He's helping them. You see him on the bench. He's talking to them all the time. So as much as you're trying to get your game going, you're getting other guys' games going too. But really, he turned those 2 guys. He really helped turn those guys into NHL players. And then when Kuzi got with him, pretty good line. I mean, the way they played. I mean, the chemistry that they seemed to have. Kuzmenko on the power play seemed to turn things around too. It just put everybody in the right spot. So you can't say enough about the year Naz had. That's special. I wish you're hoping for 30 last night for him, but he, for sure, probably our most consistent forward all year. And what he did with whoever he played with, he made him better.
Kuzmenko and Sharon Govich, you can start talking long-term extensions for these guys this summer. Is that something you'd entertain?
Well, I think, you want to talk to their representation and just see where they're at. And, we're not going to rush anything right now. We have some time. But we also going to have our meetings, our pro meetings, and then try to figure out, the plan moving forward. We have a plan. It's just now how we execute.
What did you think of Ryan Huska's first year on the job as head coach and the rest of the coaching staff? And do you foresee all of the coaches on the coaching staff coming back next year?
First, I feel like they're all going to come back. I mean, again, it's a learning curve for all of them, especially Ryan, first-time head coach. I thought he was excellent. The way he deals with the media, the way he deals with players. There's going to be learning curves, just like for myself. You make mistakes. This is good. This isn't. You're going to change as you go, but you have to give everybody time. And I think, I know the power play. We were on the power play early, but Savvy definitely had things he wanted to do. You'd watch what he drew up, and we needed to execute. We didn't always execute the way we'd like. Penalty kill was good. Maybe penalty kill at the end of the year. We struggled a little bit, but you lost some very good penalty killers down the stretch. But we're also – so I think it's just a learning curve for the whole group. And I do feel like, especially for Huska, I thought it's the way he handled himself, the way he dealt with situations along the year. And, his goal is always to improve, and he's a tireless worker behind the scenes too, and he's a fierce competitor. He's kind of got that personality where he looks like he's not going to get upset. He's a fierce competitor. So, I mean, nobody wants to win more than him, and I thought he had a great first year.
You mentioned, the youth movement and having spots open for young players. Is it safe to say you sort of have that in mind going forward, sort of keeping some spots open for young guys to fight over?
Well, we have a few guys under contract right now, so it's probably not. But yeah, you want competition. You want the best player to be. It's the NHL. It's just not because you have a contract or you're this player or that player. You want the best player in, and we want these young guys pushing, just like they did this year. So we want them to take another steps, and all these guys underneath to try to say, okay, I'm coming to take a job so I can play in the NHL.
All right. All good. Thank you.
Okay. Oh yeah. Thanks.